Linda sat in her sunlit kitchen, stirring sugar into her tea as she smiled at the envelope in her hand. It was cream-colored, thick, with gold foil edges, a wedding invitation. Her daughter, Amber, had just gotten engaged 3 months ago, and the whole family had been buzzing ever since. Amber was her only daughter. Her only child, in fact. And Linda had raised her alone. She still remembered the long nights working double shifts as a nurse, the birthday cakes made on a tight budget, the times she skipped meals so Amber could eat. It had always been the two of them against the world. So when Amber told her she was getting married, Linda felt a mix of joy, pride, and sadness. Joy because her little girl had found love. Pride because she'd made it through all the hard years. And sadness because letting go isn't easy. But she was ready. Or at least she thought she was. The phone had rung that morning. It was Amber. "Mom, the invitations just arrived. I'm sending yours first." Linda smiled and teased. "First-class mail, I hope." Amber laughed. "Only the best for my mama." Linda hung up the call feeling warm. She didn't expect anything grand. She wasn't that kind of mother. But being involved, being included, meant everything to her. That afternoon, the envelope arrived. She opened it carefully, sliding out the invitation. Her eyes scanned the details, the venue, the date, the time, but something felt off. Her name wasn't there. Not even as hosted by. She turned the card over, flipped through the inserts. No mention of the bride's mother. Just the groom's parents, front and center. "Mr. and Mrs. Douglas Granger cordially invite you." Linda blinked. She thought maybe it's a design choice. Maybe it's just tradition. Still, something in her chest tugged. She brushed it off. Maybe Amber would explain. The next day, Amber invited her over for tea. Linda wore her soft blue cardigan and brought a box of almond pastries, Amber's childhood favorite. When she walked in, the apartment was a mess of ribbons, color swatches, and open notebooks. Amber looked tired but excited. "We're picking seating charts today," she said, motioning to the kitchen table. Linda beamed. "Sounds fun. Who's sitting at my table?" Amber hesitated. "Well, actually, we're doing a sweetheart table for me and Jake. And then the family tables." Linda nodded slowly. "So, where am I sitting?" Amber looked down. "We were thinking maybe table 4? Linda raised an eyebrow. "With who?" "Some of Dad's cousins. And a few co-workers of Jake's mom." Linda tried not to show the sting. "I thought I'd be closer to you." Amber sighed. "It's not about distance, Mom. It's just we don't want any tension. You know how Dad gets." Linda said nothing. She and Amber's father had divorced when Amber was 6. He hadn't done much in her life, but now he and his new wife were suddenly showing interest again. Linda had never competed, but this felt like something else. Still, she let it slide. Pick your battles, she thought. But the real moment came a week later. Amber invited Linda to a dress fitting. Or at least that's what she said. When Linda arrived at the boutique, the door was locked. She checked the message again. "Come by at 2:30. Bring tissues, haha." It was already 2:40. She called. No answer. After 15 more minutes, she left. 2 hours later, she got a message. "Sorry, Mom. We finished early. Everyone wanted drinks after. I'll show you pics later." Linda stared at the message. Everyone? Who was everyone? Bridesmaids? Jake's mom? The aunts she never got along with? Why hadn't Amber waited? Why hadn't she called? She wrote back. "Would have loved to be there." Amber replied with a heart emoji and nothing more. That night, Linda couldn't sleep. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the ceiling fan. Her mind went back to all the birthdays, the science fairs, the tearful breakups where she'd stayed up all night with Amber. And now, Amber couldn't even wait 10 minutes? She wasn't angry. Not really. She was hurt. Deeply. Then came the dinner. Amber and Jake hosted a pre-wedding dinner with close friends and family. Linda was seated at the far end of the table, next to a groomsman she didn't know and an aunt who barely remembered her name. Throughout the evening, Amber hardly spoke to her. At one point, Linda got up to take a photo of the couple. Amber waved her off with a laugh. "Mom, not now. You're always doing the most." People laughed. But Linda's hands trembled. She sat back down, silent. It wasn't just distance anymore. It was dismissal. The next day, Linda went to a cafe alone. She pulled out a notebook she hadn't opened in years. It was filled with budgeting plans, college savings, gift lists, emergency fund numbers. And on the last page, Amber's wedding, $40,000. Linda had saved for it for over a decade. Quietly. Faithfully. cutting corners where needed. Not once did she say no when Amber asked for more flowers, a bigger cake, or that designer dress she couldn't afford on her own. But now, sitting at that cafe with tears in her eyes, Linda realized something. She had paid for a day she wasn't even truly welcome at. And in that moment, something inside her changed. She closed the notebook, finished her tea, and made a quiet decision. A decision she would carry out without yelling, without revenge, and without drama. But when the time came, it would speak louder than any words Amber had ever said. The rehearsal dinner was held at a charming Italian restaurant in the city, with exposed brick walls, twinkling string lights, and a long family-style table draped in cream linens. It was the kind of place people post on Instagram, tagging it #aesthetic. Linda arrived 5 minutes early. She stood outside for a moment, taking a deep breath. She had spent the whole afternoon picking out her outfit, a simple navy blue dress with a silver brooch that had once belonged to her mother. She even curled her hair, something she hadn't done in months. She wanted to look nice. Not to impress anyone, but for her daughter. She still hoped that maybe, just maybe, things would feel different tonight. That Amber would make her feel seen. Included. This is her rehearsal dinner, Linda told herself. It's not about me. Just smile. Just show up. So she walked inside. The room was buzzing. Waiters moved quickly between tables, laughter bounced off the walls, and clinking glasses echoed softly through the space. At the head of the table sat Amber and Jake, surrounded by their friends and Jake's parents. Linda gave a small wave as she entered. Amber looked up, gave a short smile, and turned back to her conversation. No hug. No, you look nice. Just acknowledgement. A waiter escorted Linda to her seat. Not near Amber. Not even near family. Instead, she found herself placed between Jake's cousin Mark, who she had met once, and Jake's boss's wife. They were polite, talked about the weather, commented on the wine. But Linda wasn't really listening. She kept glancing down the table. Amber was laughing, tossing her head back, sipping champagne. Toasts were being made, by the maid of honor, Jake's dad, even Amber's college roommate. But not once did Amber look Linda's way to offer a chance to speak. To say something. To be heard. Until the slideshow started. Jake's best man dimmed the lights and turned on a projector. Photos of Amber and Jake flashed across the screen. Childhood pics. Vacation selfies. Graduation hugs. Everyone cheered and laughed. Then came photos of Amber growing up. Baby pictures. First bike ride. Prom. Linda smiled softly. She had taken most of those photos. But something was missing. Not once, not even once, did a photo show Linda and Amber together. There were photos of Amber with friends, teachers, even a few blurry group shots from holidays. But Linda? Erased. She felt her throat tighten, her chest clench. She blinked hard. No tears. Not here. After the slideshow, Linda quietly stepped out to the patio. She needed air. The city lights shimmered in the distance. She leaned against the railing and took a deep breath. She didn't hear the door open behind her. Mom. It was Amber. Linda turned around, offering a soft smile. Hi, sweetheart. Amber hesitated. You okay? Linda nodded. Just needed a minute. It's been a long day. Amber looked around, arms crossed. I noticed you left during the slideshow. Linda's voice stayed even. It was lovely. Amber tilted her head. You sure? Linda nodded again. Of course. There was a pause. Then Amber said something that changed everything. You know, Mom, this day really isn't about you. The words cut like glass. Not because they were cruel, but because they were so carelessly honest. Linda didn't say anything at first. Just looked at her daughter, her eyes soft but steady. Amber continued, oblivious. You've always been kind of intense. Even when I was a kid. You always needed to be part of everything. But Jake and I want this to be drama-free. Simple. Clean. Linda felt her heart pounding, but her voice didn't waver. I didn't come for attention, Amber. I just came to support you. Amber nodded. Good. Then just try to stay low-key tomorrow, okay? Don't cry too much. And maybe sit toward the back. We want everything to flow. Linda just stood there. Silent. Amber gave a quick hug, barely a pat, and walked back inside. The next morning was the wedding day. Linda got ready alone in her small apartment. No calls. No messages. No, can you help with this? Or are you on your way? She put on a soft gray dress and pinned the same silver brooch at the collar. She didn't bother curling her hair. Not today. She arrived right on time. Sat quietly in the back pew of the church. People greeted her with kind but distant smiles. She watched Amber walk down the aisle, radiant in white. And despite everything, her eyes welled with tears. Because even if she wasn't welcome, she was still proud. At the reception, things came to a head. The music was loud. The lights were low. Speeches were wrapping up. People were dancing. Linda stayed seated. She didn't want to force anything. Just wanted to blend in and quietly celebrate her daughter's big day. But then, during dinner, a guest came to her table, an old friend of the groom's family. "You must be Amber's aunt," he said cheerfully. Linda smiled. "Actually, I'm her mother." His expression shifted, awkward. "Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed." Linda nodded. "It's all right." He walked away quickly. That was it. The moment. That was when something inside her quietly snapped. She stood up and walked slowly to Amber's table. Amber was chatting with friends, her champagne glass half full. Linda leaned down and softly said, "I think I'm going to head out." Amber blinked. "Already?" Linda gave a small smile. "I don't really think I'm part of the evening." Amber looked annoyed. "Mom, can you not make a scene?" Linda blinked. "I'm not making a scene." But Amber raised her voice, just enough for nearby tables to hear. "Can you please not be like this? Don't turn this into one of your dramatic moments. Just go quietly if you're going." The table fell silent. People turned their heads. Linda stood frozen. Her hands clenched the edge of the chair, but she didn't raise her voice. Didn't cry. Didn't defend herself. She just looked at her daughter, the girl she had raised with love, patience, and sacrifice, and said, "I'll go. Don't worry." Then she turned and walked out. Slowly, gracefully. But behind that smile, a quiet storm was forming. Linda didn't sleep the night of the wedding. After quietly leaving the reception, she drove home in silence, her hands steady on the steering wheel, her face calm, but her chest heavy. She didn't cry. She didn't call anyone. She didn't even take off her shoes when she entered her apartment. She simply sat on the couch, still in her gray dress, staring at the soft yellow glow of the lamp in the corner. She sat in that quiet until the sun came up. No one texted. No one called to ask if she got home safe. No one noticed she had left early. Not even Amber. Linda walked to her bookshelf and pulled out an old floral notebook. It was creased at the edges, soft from years of handling. On the cover, written in black marker, were the words, "Amber's Big Day 40K Plan." Inside were pages of notes. Tiny numbers. Receipts. Timeline drafts. Cake vendors. Budget goals. Everything. She had started saving the year Amber turned 16. One part-time shift at a time, she tucked money into a separate savings account marked wedding gift. It wasn't meant for control. She didn't plan to wave it around or make conditions. She just wanted to make sure Amber wouldn't have to stress when her big day came. Linda had paid for the venue deposit, the catering, the flower arrangements, even the down payment for the dress. And Amber had promised to pay her back for a few things. That payback never came. Linda never asked for it, because deep down she always believed her love was the gift. And money, that was just her way of showing it. But now, sitting in her quiet apartment, all she could feel was this cold realization. She had funded a celebration that she was quietly pushed out of. The next morning, Linda brewed a fresh cup of coffee and opened her laptop. She logged into her banking app. There it was. The last check she had written, $15,000, scheduled to clear the next day. It was going straight to Amber and Jake's honeymoon fund. Without hesitation, she clicked cancel. She didn't do it in anger. She didn't flinch. She simply reclaimed her gift. Then she picked up the phone. She called her lawyer, Sarah, a soft-spoken woman in her early 40s who had helped Linda set up a will a few years ago. "Hi, Sarah," Linda said, her voice calm. "I'd like to make a few changes to my estate plan." Sarah replied, "Of course. When would you like to come in?" "Today," Linda said. "Before I change my mind." That afternoon, Linda sat across from Sarah in a quiet, sunlit office. They sipped tea and reviewed the documents. "My original plan was to leave everything to Amber," Linda said. "But I'd like to divide it differently now." Sarah nodded gently. "Do you want to remove her completely?" Linda hesitated. "No. I still love her. But I'd like most of my assets to go to my niece's children. I've seen how they treat their mother. With kindness. With respect. That matters to me now." Sarah made the edits. Then she paused. "Is this decision coming from a place of hurt?" Linda smiled, but her eyes were tired. "It's coming from clarity." Days passed. The silence between Linda and Amber stretched wider. No thank you card. No photos. No post-wedding message. But Linda didn't chase. She had chased enough. Instead, she focused her energy on things that brought her joy: gardening, reading, volunteering at the local library. She didn't stop loving Amber. She just stopped begging to be loved in return. Then, a week later, the text came. It was a simple message. No emojis. No small talk. Hey Mom, we noticed the honeymoon gift didn't come through. Was there a problem with the bank? Linda stared at the screen for a long time. Her hands didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. She simply replied, "No problem. I canceled it." Amber's reply came instantly. "What? Why? You said you were sending it as a gift." Linda wrote back, "I did. But then you made it clear I wasn't really part of your day. So I made sure my gift wasn't part of it either." Amber didn't respond. Not that night. Not the next day. Not for another week. And during that week, something strange happened. Linda felt lighter. Not happy. Not smug. Just free. She had always thought that giving endlessly was the definition of love. That good mothers gave and waited silently in the shadows. But now, she understood something she never had before. Love doesn't mean disappearing for others. It doesn't mean shrinking yourself to fit the corners of someone else's spotlight. It means knowing when to step back, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Amber finally called. Linda almost didn't answer, but her heart still held a door open. "Hi, Mom." "Hi." Long silence. "I got your message," Amber said. "About the gift." "I figured." Amber let out a slow breath. "Look, I know the wedding was hectic. I know things didn't come across the way they should have." Linda didn't say anything. "I just wish you had told me sooner. Instead of just pulling back like that." Linda's voice was soft. "I tried, Amber. I tried to show up. You kept pushing me further and further away. And eventually, I heard you." Amber's voice cracked. "I didn't mean to. I was just, I don't know, caught up. Everyone had opinions. I thought if I didn't control things, something would go wrong." Linda replied gently, "And what went wrong was the one person who's always stood by you no longer felt welcome." Amber was quiet. Then, "Can we talk? In person?" Linda paused. "We can, but I'm not undoing the decision. That money was meant to be a gesture of love. And love, when rejected, doesn't come with refunds." And just like that, the first crack of realization formed in Amber's world. She had gotten everything she wanted: the dress, the photos, the party. But she had lost something more valuable than all of it. The silent gift. The one that came without conditions. The one she thought would always be there. Amber sat alone in the condo she now shared with Jake, staring at the blank screen of her phone. Her wedding album sat on the coffee table. Beautiful, full of curated moments, smiles, flowers, champagne toasts. But the longer she stared at it, the more she noticed something missing. Not one real moment with her mother. No pictures of Linda zipping up her dress. No speech from the woman who had raised her. No embrace after the vows. The truth she had tried so hard to ignore was now screaming in silence. She hadn't just excluded her mother from a ceremony. She had erased her from a memory she could never remake. Meanwhile, Linda had moved on quietly. Not in bitterness, but in peace. She joined a gardening club. She signed up to teach reading to second graders at the library. She started walking every morning before sunrise. Her life, though quiet, was full again because she had begun giving energy to things that gave something back. She hadn't spoken to Amber in nearly 2 months, aside from the short call about the canceled gift. She didn't reach out. She didn't wait. And in that space, she healed. Because sometimes the absence of chaos is the beginning of peace. Then one afternoon, Amber showed up. It was a rainy Thursday. Linda was in the kitchen kneading bread, something she hadn't done in years. Her playlist played soft jazz in the background. The apartment smelled like rosemary and olive oil. She almost didn't hear the knock. When she opened the door, there stood Amber, no makeup, frizzy hair, wearing a hoodie and jeans. Not the polished version. Just her. "Hi, Mom." Linda blinked. "Amber, can I come in?" Linda stepped aside. "Of course." Amber walked in and looked around. "It smells like childhood in here." Linda gave a faint smile. "It's just bread." Amber sat at the table and stared at her hands. "I wanted to see you," she said. "Not to ask for anything. I just wanted to talk." Linda sat across from her, wiping her flour-dusted hands on a dish towel. "I've been thinking about everything," Amber said. "About how I treated you. I don't even know how it got that bad. I was just trying to hold everything together. And somewhere in that mess, I pushed you away. Linda nodded slowly. You did. Amber winced at the honesty. But she didn't flinch. I thought, Amber continued, if I made the day perfect, it would prove I was grown. In control. Independent. But all I did was hurt the one person who made the day possible. Linda looked at her daughter, truly looked. There was no defense in Amber's eyes. No excuses. Just rawness. I kept waiting for you to forgive me, Amber said. And then I realized. I never really said I was sorry. Her voice broke. I'm sorry, Mom. For the wedding. For the way I made you feel. For treating you like an outsider in a story you helped write. Linda sat quietly for a moment. Then, in the calmest voice, she said, Thank you for saying that. Amber blinked. That's it. No, Linda said gently. But it's where healing begins. Amber leaned in. Do you think we can ever get back to before? Linda smiled sadly. No. And I think that's okay. Amber looked down. But, Linda continued, we can start from here. We can build something new. Not based on what I gave, but on what you give back. Amber nodded slowly. I want that. They talked for hours. About old memories. Childhood moments. Mistakes neither had ever said out loud. And for the first time in years, Linda felt like she wasn't performing motherhood. She was simply connecting. When Amber stood to leave, she paused at the door. One more thing, she said. That $40,000 gift? I know I blew that. I don't expect anything else. I just want you to know I understand now. Linda smiled. I'm glad. Because that money went somewhere else. Amber blinked. It did. Linda nodded. I used it to open an education fund. For my niece's kids. They've always made me feel appreciated. So I invested in their future. Quietly. No drama. Just love that was returned. Amber's eyes filled, but she nodded. I understand. And this time she meant it. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. Amber didn't come back with demands. She came back with time. She invited Linda to lunch. Not fancy restaurants, but coffee shops, bookstores, art fairs. They talked about gardening, life, books. And slowly, trust was rebuilt, not by grand gestures, but by consistent presence. Linda didn't pretend to forget. But she forgave. And Amber didn't expect to be handed everything back. She earned her way back. One day, Amber came over with an envelope. Inside was a letter. Not typed. Not a card. Handwritten. Dear Mom, thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you. I know I tried to have the perfect wedding, but what I needed was a better relationship with you. I know I can't undo the past, but I'll spend the rest of my life honoring the mother who built my future. At the bottom was a small drawing, a cartoon of a wedding photo, only this time, it had Linda in it. Holding Amber's hand. Linda framed it, not because it erased the pain, but because it symbolized growth. Real, honest, earned growth. So what was the real lesson? It wasn't that money hurts. It wasn't that weddings go wrong. It was this. You don't have to fight to be respected by the people you love. You teach them how to love you, by how you love yourself. And when you stop begging to be seen, the right people will come closer on their own. And for Linda, she didn't lose a daughter. She just had to wait for her to come back as a woman. One who finally saw her. Not just as a mother, but as a person worth honoring.